What are the pros and cons of infinite banking? So many of you have heard this concept of becoming your own bank. We're going to break it down and tell you if it's right for you. I can just tell you how many of you say, yes, I want generational wealth. If that's true, then this is real. Give it a listen. So specifically, I'm going to break down what is infinite banking and what can it do for you. I'm going to break down the pros and cons, right? Because there's both. There's a little activity that's involved in becoming your own bank. None of this stuff comes without a little bit of paperwork, but it's worth it. And number three, what you should and shouldn't do. How do you use these policies and how do you use them really for your life protection and for generational wealth, because you can pass on millions of dollars to your children. So I'm doing an interview with an expert in infinite banking. His name's Jason Henderson. He's a partner of mine. Let's give a listen to this interview. I'm going to break this all down. He's going to break it down because he's an expert in this category. So this is Laura. Welcome back. I'm here with Dr. Jason Henderson, who we are talking about infinite banking. Again, this is a one of 4-part series. So we are in video number 2. If you missed one, make sure you go back to yesterday and grab it, because you're going to want to cumulatively understand how you can become your own bank. So Jason, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here.
So specifically, we want to talk about what is infinite banking? Where did it come from? So a little of the history and the fact you were mentored by the guy who developed it all, the pros and cons, so people can understand how to make a decision around him. The third thing, what you should and shouldn't do as you move forward. At the end of our video, we're going to give you an amazing gift. So stay tuned. So Jason, start the whole conversation with, where did infinite banking come from? How did you even get introduced to it?
So truly the concept itself, or the ability to use the contract in which we're teaching people to use, has been around for 200 years. Right. Yet there's a guy named R. Nelson Nash in the early 80s discovered a way to use it and to put it in a way where he's saying, be your own banker. And he's the one that coined the phrase, the infinite banking concept. He would go around and do seminars, 3-day seminars. In fact, I had him in my town 3 different times to talk to people for 3 days about this concept. After about 20 years of doing his seminars, he then published the book, Becoming Your Own Banker, with the subtitle being Unlock the Infinite Banking Concept.
That's awesome. And so he also has published a book about becoming your own bank. And so talk a little bit about the distinctions. I mean, the pro, clearly you have more financial controls and you control your environment. As most of you know, if you've been reading my books, I talk about do not park and pray, which a lot of people do, just park their money and pray something happens. This is a lot more active and engaged.
Absolutely. The pros are actually too many to talk about. And the limitations of this whole concept is simply your imagination. How can you use a banking business to benefit your life? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Think of all the interest that you have paid throughout your life, whether that's on car purchases, home purchases, vacations maybe, or other kinds of things where you've actually paid interest on. Where's all that money now? That's a serious sum of money. Now think in reverse and say, in the event there was the possibility of me to have been paying that interest to my bank, where would I be now financially? There would be a world of difference. Every single person I talk to, Laurel, eventually says, I wished I would have known about this X number of years ago, 20, 30 years ago, whatever it is. When they really understand the concept, then they can redirect, if you will, interest that they're paying to someone else to their bank. Wow, they start to dream much, much bigger. I mean, let me give you an example. Most people think in buying a car, it's a liability. Well, when your own bank, that loan to your car becomes an asset. And now you're using your money in 2 ways, where your car payment is not only paying for your car, it's building your banking system, it's building your retirement, and building a stream of passive income that you will never outlive. There's 4 uses of the same dollars. And when I think about that, do I take the Toyota or do I take the BMW? Right? And most everybody thinks, well, easily, I know what's happening with this money. I can drive a much better car, enjoy it, and still have my retirement and income and wealth growing. So that's a few of the pros anyway. I hope that's enough. Do you want me to do more?
Yeah, give me one more example, and then let's go to the cons, which is, I'm going to say with everyone around money, it's being disciplined and having actually money rules and a guide. But we'll get there. Give me one more example other than the car. And before in part one, you had talked about the building you're now sitting in. So how else can we use the money as a bank?
Let me give you an example that everybody knows about, that nobody knows about. A few years ago, there was on TV, there was this guy driving down the highway in Los Angeles, and like 50 cop cars with their lights rolling, following him, right? It was O.J. Simpson. They're about to arrest him. He was arrested, and then there's this famous trial, right, where he was accused of the murder of his ex-girlfriend and ex-wife, right? Well, he was acquitted.
Yep.
Right after that, and that was the criminal trial, right after that, there was a civil trial brought against him by her family, and he was found guilty. He lost, and they had a huge judgment against him. And guess how much money they got from that judgment? Loral knows, you bet, absolutely nothing. And why? For the fact that his money was locked up in insurance domiciled in the state of Florida. Asset protection with this is bulletproof. Now, there's a few states like California and Illinois and Jersey that are a little bit not quite as good. Now, most of the states in the union, it's absolutely bulletproof. People are unable to get to that. And for a lot of people, as you start to get more and more wealthy and more active assets, good assets, you want that protection.
Interesting. And I know a lot of people like back out of that and go, oh my gosh, like that'll never happen to me. I'll never be sued. That's an isolated incident. It's not. There are so many just what I call trivial lawsuits. And, unlike anything else, this is really locked up. And like you said, is bulletproof. So talk about some of the cons then too. Like this is a much more active way of being. But again, what we talk about in all the books, especially this latest one, right? To Make Your Kids Millionaires. This is really active parenting, right? So this is calling in activity that we think you should be doing anyway. So talk about the being disciplined part of this and how it really works.
Well, discipline is absolutely key for the fact, like we talked yesterday, and if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to yesterday. It'll build a foundation for this, is that you are in total control of what's going on. I don't know whether you can grasp that enough in this short video. However, when you are in control, when you don't pay attention, you can go off the rails. I mean, when you're driving a car, you're not paying attention all the time. You can get in an accident. When you're the driver, you've got to be paying attention. So that's what's happening here. And so there needs to be regular contributions to your system to keep it going. We need to never steal from ourselves when we take a loan. Let's say I took a loan for this building like I described yesterday, and then I never made a payment back. That bank business is going to go out of business. And there's a lot of savings and loans that went out of business for that reason in the late 1980s. There's one very famous one where like 75% of the loans that were outstanding were to the board of directors of that savings and loan. And what they had done is turn around and invested in oil, and oil kind of crashed, and they weren't making payments back, and that bank crashed and took a lot of people's money with it. Similar thing here. You must stay on top of what's happening, never still, continue to capitalize your banking system. So there's lots of, when I say discipline, that really needs to be with it. And another con is starting to think, oh, I know everything, right? This is something that needs to be refreshed in your mind. That's why I love what you do, Loral. You have an ongoing education system, both on this channel and other social channels and your millionaire marketplace. People can return and return and return and use their brain. It's like, how often should I eat? Right? It's the same thing. How often in fact, you have coined it, I heard the other day, your daily money vitamin. It needs to be daily. And the same thing here. That is a real con. You're not staying on top of it. There is the possibility for you to lose money, especially in the early years. When you get into it 10, 15, 20 years, it's a little bit more difficult for the fact that how this contract is designed, it becomes more efficient in generating money when it's older. In fact, it gets to a point where it's so self-sustaining, it's almost hard to kill it.
So when you say like, just talk a little bit about what you should and shouldn't do. Obviously, be disciplined. Make sure you're staying engaged, managing monthly, watching what your money is doing. What any total shouldn'ts other than ignoring parking?
Stealing from yourself, right? When you take a loan from your policy, that's from yourself, if you will, or a loan against your policy, and then not pay it back, that's the equivalent of stealing from your future self, right? Not making whole that business by repaying the loan. That's how you kill the business. That is an absolute. You do that and you're guilty of that, you're going to get in trouble. That's why the discipline must be there. Even though, we're really tight on money this month, the payment to your future self probably should be the very first one.
I like that. I like that. So again, our gift to you is if you didn't get it in part one, make sure that you go to insuritysystems.com, and it's in the show notes below. So just click on that link. It'll take you to a free report to explain more. But even more additive, we want you to make sure you get an appointment with Dr. Jason Henderson and spend some time understanding what it can do for you and your family. To me, this is your financial foundation. It's the base. And then from here, you can build, you could build on top of it. But this is a very solid base. And like we said earlier, it's bulletproof. So Jason, anything else to wrap up this part 2 of 4?
No.
Okay. So go to the show notes again, click on the link, get a report, make sure you get an appointment. If you have any questions, go to askloral.com, and always subscribe to the channel. And this is one where I not only want you to subscribe and hit notification, I want you to share it like right now with 5 to 10 other people that needs this information. This is that sharing kind of video. Like so many people could have a different life and a different foundation. And I guess to wrap this up, I just want to ask you this one question. Like, do you need to be ultra wealthy to be in infinite banking? Because I actually think there's a lot of people on my YouTube channel who are immediately going to back out from this, just thinking, well, I don't have enough money, or I can't afford, I'm not wealthy yet. I'll get back to this conversation that Loral and Jason are having. What would you say to them?
Absolutely to the contrary. There's people that will teach you, and I could coach you to help you actually get out of debt faster using this vehicle. In your community, I know, Loral, you don't talk a whole lot about getting out of debt. We want to focus more on earning more. In that process, people are being massacred. 20, 25 plus interest on their credit cards, the ability to get access to capital at a lot less interest rate. We would now put it through your banking system and help you get out of debt. In fact, I can show you get out of debt, including your mortgage, in 10 years and less.
So that is another big reason right now. Go to insuritysystems.com, which is in the show notes. Click on the link, get our report, and the calendar link will come up. Schedule some time to talk about those whole conversations with Jason. Thank you for being here. And again, thank all of you. We'll be back tomorrow with part 3.